In this video, I'm going to tell you why loud budgeting, yes, loud budgeting will make you a millionaire. And the concept itself of loud budgeting is basically being expressive, is being open and outward towards your finances instead of the traditional private, my eyes only type of financial planning. So if you never heard of me or this channel, my name is Anfernee. I like to make videos about investing, personal finance, and side hustles. And today's video, I'm going to be talking about budgeting and loud budgeting specifically. So as usual, when I'm reading around different financial articles on Wall Street Journal or any other website, I tend to come across some things that pique my interest. And one of the articles I read recently was covering the concept of loud budgeting. Now, what is loud budgeting? Well, first I can tell you what it's not, and that is a joke, although it may have started off that way. You see, the concept of loud budgeting started off pretty much as a joke within a small group of friends who would tell the other people in the friend group that they can't do something, because they were a little bit over budget on grocery this month, or they couldn't go out because they spent too much on their pedicure. And it went on like this for a couple of months until this friend group realized that this was actually a really effective way to keep each other on track financially. And once this realization occurred, that's when the concept of loud budgeting was formed. So honestly, exactly what is loud budgeting? Well, it's basically the act of letting your immediate friend group into your financials, letting them know exactly how much money you make, exactly where you're spending your money at, what your car payment is, what your insurance is, how much money you have set aside for activities and fun during the month, and removing the stigma, removing the dogma that you have to keep your personal financials private. Now, albeit when I first read this, it seemed like a little bit of an absurd thing to do because we were always taught that my money is my money, and it is a little bit offensive for you to ask someone how much money they make or how much money they have or anything related to money, because we wrongly assign the amount of income that we earn with our level of self-worth. We tend to think that if we don't earn this much money, then we are not worth as much as a human being, which is absolutely false. The amount of money that you earn is simply the amount of money that you are willing to sacrifice your time for. And although that may sound like a simple definition, you probably went to school to be in a certain field, and you probably decided to work in a certain job rather than another job because you found your time to be a little bit more appealing in that specific role for the compensation. So by agreeing to a compensation arrangement for your time, you are not defining your self-worth, you're just defining what your working hours are worth. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is that your income is basically just a number, but the things that you can do with that income, like build wealth, make investments, and do a lot of other things if you have the right systems in place, are going to be very powerful if you take the right steps. So exactly what makes loud budgeting so effective? And it is going to be the fact that loud budgeting is a collaborative effort. You are not only going to be relying on yourself or your spouse or your immediate family in order to know exactly what to do financially. A lot of the times, I can speak for myself personally, we only know what our parents taught us about money, and that is a very narrow-minded way to think about financials, because our parents probably didn't have the exposure to different financial avenues, different investment styles, and overall different backgrounds to know exactly what was the most efficient way to invest or the most efficient way to go about using your money. Some parents may say to never get a credit card, while others may say get a credit card as early as possible in order to build your credit score up from the minute you turn 18. Some parents may say never to invest in the stock market because it's dangerous, or others may say that they start an investment account for you at the age of 5 so that you can experience the joys of compound interest. The purpose is that leverage your friend group, talk to each other to find areas that resonate well with you and that you can personally utilize in your own life in order to make the best decisions financially. And one of the most important things that loud budgeting allows you to do is that it forces you to take accountability for where you spend your money. It is very easy, almost way too easy, to justify to yourself when you want to spend a little bit of money that you didn't have budgeted. Let's say you want to buy a new pair of shoes on a whim, or let's say you just see something that you really like. If you are only doing it yourself, you can very reasonably justify that purchase. But if you have one or two friends in your ear that you are forced to tell that to through the process of loud budgeting, then they may be able to provide a voice of reason, asking, do you really need that item? Do you think you're going to appreciate that item in 2 weeks, or would you rather have the money that you spent toward that item? By giving yourself an avenue to have an additional voice of reason, you are almost going to be forced to stick to your budget unless you're just willing to disregard your friends no matter what the outcome may be. But that accountability also leads into peer pressure from loud budgeting, but not in a negative way. Usually peer pressure, especially with personal finances, can be extremely negative because our peers tend to encourage us to spend money that we don't have, to impress people that we don't like, and buy things that we don't want. But through the process of loud budgeting, if our peers are planning to take a vacation in 3 months and they're asking us whether we want to go, if they know our financials, if they know where our money is being spent, then I personally think that they will be less likely to pressure you to spend money that you don't yet have or that you have allocated for a different purpose. And by that same token, if you are the one advocating to take a vacation with money that you did not have planned, I feel that through loud budgeting, those same same peers would encourage you not to spend that money and to instead stick to your plan so that you can reap the rewards of consistent and disciplined budgeting methods over a long-term period of time. And I'm definitely not one to say that you should never spend money and never have fun. I am not a Graham Stephan. I think that you should enjoy your life and that you should live abundantly, although I do think that you should have a plan of when and where that occurs. By not planning, you open yourself up to more risk, and then if a rainy day does come, then you'll be less likely to able to sustain that than if you had planned for every possible scenario. And also piggybacking on accountability and peer pressure, loud budgeting simply allows you to be more disciplined. And in the game of investing, and in the game of budgeting, and in the game of saving money, the more discipline that you have, the more likely that you will be to be successful over a long-term period of time. I think that it is very easy to put money aside for 1 month or 2 months or maybe even 3 months, but when that 4th month comes around, when a holiday comes or a birthday comes or Christmas comes around, and you see all of the money that you have not being spent in a savings account, 1 day's worth of lack of discipline can erase a whole year's worth of savings. Use me as an example once again. A few years ago, I was daydreaming about owning a Tesla Model Y. I had just paid off both of our used cars, which was a Kia Sorento and a Jeep Cherokee, and although I consider myself to be a very disciplined person, at a snap of the fingers, I had went to a dealership and bought a 2022 Tesla Model Y Performance that cost a staggering $77,000. Now, I made a video about that here on the channel, and I have since paid that car off, but sometimes I do daydream about what that $77,000 could have gone towards had I not bought that Tesla that I still happen to own. But to put my personal experiences aside, the last most effective way that loud budgeting can make you a millionaire is through the form of, if you're anything like me, competitiveness. I have always, since a young child, loved to compete. I have always wanted to compete to be the best. And I think that if you have a friend group who shares these values, who wants to see that who can be the one to stay on budget the longest, who can save the most money in percentage to their income, who cannot submit to temptation and buy things that they don't need, I think that that friend group will be so much more successful in the long term, because each one of those people are going to be building each other up constructively instead of trying to drain each other's bank accounts to do things that they feel are fun. This can almost be a sort of a fantasy league type scenario where at the beginning of the league, you track how close each person stays on budget, how much each person saves in percentage to their income, and by the end of the league, whoever has been the most disciplined gets a trophy, gets a reward, otherwise gets a prize similar to a fantasy league champion. I think that would be a pretty good idea for an app. If I was an app developer, I may even try that out. Maybe I'll try to hire someone out one day to do that. I don't know. But overall, I think that that is a very constructive way to go about budgeting. And if you are a little bit of an introvert, or if you are a little bit of taxed to that dogma that your personal finances should stay private, what I would ask you is that, do you think that the way you're doing things currently is effective? If you're already a person who saves enough money, who invests enough money, and who is very disciplined without consulting outside help, then by all means continue to do what you're doing. However, if you are someone who tends to struggle with temptation, who tends to justify large purchases without any accountability towards them, then loud budgeting may simply be another alternative that you can try in order to try to be successful with building your financial future. I want to see all of my subscribers have at least $1,000 in an emergency fund, and then after that have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved, and then to start investing in the stock market, open up a Roth IRA, contributing to their 401k, taking these steps financially so that by the time they retire, they are not worried about where their next meal is going to come from. They're not going to be worried about how to pay the bills, because for years and years and years they have been preparing for the day that they stop working. And by following the steps that I talked about in this video and previous videos, I believe that you will be in great shape to do that. So if you found any kind of value in this video, don't forget to tap that like button for your boy. And if you do want to stick around, I will see you in the next one.